The Cyber Minutes podcast is for educational purposes only. The views expressed by hosts and guests are their own, not necessarily their employers. Advice discussed is general advice. We promote ethical discussions, not illegal activities. Listen responsibly. G'day everyone and Merry Christmas. My name is Max. Welcome to the Cyber Minutes podcast. I'm joined today by Flynn and Flynn. So what we're going to be talking about today is a few different topics. We've got a lot of stuff lined up, including Christmas scams, some information on some new events that have come out in cybersecurity. We've also got some stuff on achievements for the podcast so far and what our goals for the podcast are, as well as some personal goals too. And yeah, we'll get right into it. Christmas scams, that's a kind of an important topic at the moment. You can see them happening more and more as we get closer to the time. I've had a few pop into my email very recently. Have you guys noticed any email scams popping up?
Yeah, it is really prime time for it. Even my managers today showed me one that if you could really catch you off guard. It was something like, oh, hey, can you add me to this chat or whatever because I want to send you my present, whatever. And depending on the timing and because everybody's looking at gifts right now, even those your package hasn't been delivered sort of ones, they're going to be so much more common right now. So yeah, stay vigilant. Don't click links in SMSs as we always say. But yeah, it's prime time for it.
Yeah, so definitely worth keeping an eye out. Flynn, have you seen any as well?
I'd consider myself relatively lucky. I've only received a few of those Australian Post text messages really, so I think I'm lucky. Yeah, keep your eyes open.
Gosh. And also be careful on where you're shopping. Of course, you can get some great deals online, but probably too good to be true a lot of the time. Actually, a follow-up, Max. Maybe you might actually want to look this up. Did we see an increase in, just general prices for the Christmas time because of the DP World breach?
From my understanding, there was not any kind of increase in the prices. I've seen general increases this year because of inflation, but in this period, it's not like prices have gone up that I've seen.
Yeah, I haven't seen any either. Not that I'm aware of. So that's, I suppose, good.
I don't know, maybe
it's going to be an even further trickle-on effect way down the line. Thankfully, that hasn't been the case yet, which was something we were worried about.
Yeah, well, if you have seen something that might have been because of that, feel free to let us know. Send us an email, cyberminutspodcast@gmail.com, and yeah, we'll have a listen, maybe bring it up. Another thing, it might be a bit too late, but I suppose for Boxing Day sales, a interesting thing to bring up is if you don't need to sign up to get a discount with whatever store you're buying stuff from, it's better to not sign up. Even if there's some very minuscule benefits. If you're trusting this company with your information, either use a burner account, which means create a brand new email address, or use one that you don't care about, use a password you don't care about to sign up, or just don't sign up at all. Don't give them your phone number, because if they get breached, then you're in trouble as well. And if you don't get a discount, what's the point of signing up for some loyalty program, right?
A lot of them take just email addresses that don't exist too, and that's something I try first when I'm signing up. Just put in 123abcxyz@gmail.com or something that doesn't exist, and that often gets it through.
And then for phone number, just tell them 000.
Yeah, so phone numbers is a bit more difficult, but yeah.
One method I've seen that's quite effective as well, I was talking to a friend the other week, that they use the one-time credit card thing. So basically you just put in $1 and it generates a credit card for you. That way, of course, it doesn't matter if it gets breached because it's not a real credit card. So then you can sign up to the things that are it's a free trial, but you don't have to worry about forgetting about the subscription months later or anything like that, or you don't have to worry about your details being breached because then it's not useful later on.
Yeah.
That's something I actually want to look into myself just because, generally trying to be safer online. I generally try to avoid buying stuff online anyway, though. So
if I can help it, I try to as well. I don't know, Amazon has some good deals around this time, so can't always totally avoid it.
Or help yourself.
Yeah, that's it. So skeleton crews this time of year, I'm sure we all know about it. For the people listening to this, you're probably not at work. You're probably at home with your family. And for the people who are not listening to this on Christmas Day,
we're very sorry.
We're very sorry that you have to be at work doing the hard job that no one else is doing. It's a lot of work, and yeah, it can be a bit nerve-wracking, right? If you're thinking, shit, all that needs to happen is we hit some incident and we need more people to come help fix it. It can be quite a nerve-wracking position at sometimes to be in.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of attackers will intentionally time their attacks during periods where everybody's going to be on break because, there's more likelihood that they're not going to get detected. Or if they are detected, nobody really cares because, they can get away with it and people just, want to spend time with their family, which is completely reasonable.
Mm.
So organizations do go through a bit of a difficult time with security during the Christmas period just because there's so many, what ifs. And which is sad because, sometimes security people don't really get a day off. But, that's kind of the game. There's never rest. Attackers never rest. So
No, exactly.
we have to get it right 100% of the time. Hackers only really have to get it right once.
Yeah, 100%. So yeah, props to anyone working a skeleton crew or working as part of a small team staying online during this period. Good on you. And to the people who are staying at home, maybe it might be a good thing to just show your appreciation in some way when you get back to the office.
Yeah, and just be generally resilient. As we said, the phishing stuff, being mindful that, something could happen, even though, it's a good time to turn your brain off.
Another thing that popped up over the last few weeks was this app that Marcus Brownlee, I'm sure you guys have heard of him, is a YouTuber who does technology videos, quite a popular one. It was a bit of a meme for a while. Will Smith was in YouTube Rewind a couple years back, and he mentioned something about Marcus Brownie.
I know.
Brownie, yeah. He called him Marcus Brownie. That's what it was. But no, so he made a video on this new app called Nothing Chats, and what it is it's a app that lets you send the blue texts to iPhone users as if you had an iPhone. Now, the app released a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't even survive 24 hours on the App Store before being taken down for Google devices. So the issues that they had were not really any bugs or any, things that were nuanced technical issues. It was all security problems. It was security, the whole thing. What was bad about it was, the obvious is you're sending an Apple ID that's either your Apple ID or one that you've just created off to a server, which is emulating an iPhone and then sending texts. Basically, when you're doing that, you're giving full control to the company that's storing your information, which you kind of expect in that kind of setup. But it became really bad when everyone realized that there was no encryption being run on your information. So in the information page on the website, they said that there was end-to-end encryption on all of the information that you send. Well, it turns out there was actually no encryption whatsoever being sent to two different locations. So there was two log analytics that were collecting information from all of your chats, basically. All of your logs were being sent with no encryption, plain text, to these two log collectors. What also occurred was, turns out that the packets being sent from your device off into the internet, those were being sent through a HTTP protocol, not even HTTPS, meaning that the communications were very, very easily intercepted.
You could just sniff the entire traffic and get everything that you wanted.
Yeah, if you had Wireshark open on the same network as someone using it, you could just read all of their chats that they were sent in real time. So yeah, really not good practices, very lazy development. Apparently there were really bad supply chain issues where they were outsourcing, and it turned out that the people developing the app were not the same as the people marketing it, and it just became a real messy, lazy mess, I suppose. So that was an interesting kind of event that happened a couple of weeks ago. If you're using Nothing Chats, get rid of it. Maybe you might need to change your passwords for your Apple ID and just scrub it completely. But no, terrible, terrible instance of an app trying to make an intuitive design, but actually just making a shithouse design, really.
Did you have any insights from a software engineering perspective on terrible design, Flynn.
Not super. I mean, this is all just sort of like worst case scenario. Don't ever do this. Like, check that you're sending packets as HTTPS, or if you weren't even planning on that, just
stop.
From what it sounds like to me, it sounds like someone had an idea of, oh, what if everyone could do this that didn't, like, could send iMessage messages that didn't really have much knowledge in this field, and they've just kind of rushed this feature out the door and they haven't really thought about the repercussions of it.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like to me. And then on top of that, you said all the supply chain issues, which kind of sounds wild to me. It doesn't seem like a crazy concept. Like, you're just emulating an iPhone, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely terrible practice.
a bit of other insight I have is the Nothing company that made this is a phone company first and foremost. They had a few videos from like Marcus Brownlee, and they made a pair of earbuds, and the whole like tech community made videos on them, and they were all right phones and all right earphones, and they look really cool. There was a lot of hype behind them, so I mean, I'm guessing a lot of people built trust in Nothing, and probably immediately trusted that Nothing was doing the right thing with Nothing chats. But I guess this is just more evidence that you really can't even trust those who you trust.
No, exactly. Yeah. And they decided to have a bunch of first-year uni students code their web application.
It's crazy to me that, like, you know, it just takes a Google search to, like, this is such commonplace. I don't understand how this even happens now. You could use ChatGPT and it would have done a better job, really.
Pretty much, yeah. Anyway, let's move on. So there were some essential 8 changes that happened over the last week and a bit. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Flynn?
Yeah, so they came around November, end of November. I don't know the exact date, but some pretty big changes, actually. So I'm pretty happy with the changes overall, but there are a couple ones which I'm a bit on the fence of. The biggest changes, I would say, is that they've made it much more granular. So beforehand, for example, in the application hardening section, it would be, the application control section, it would be, there's application control on workstations, folders, user profiles, whereas now it just goes, there's application control on workstations, then as a new requirement, there's an application control on folders, which seems like it's nothing, which in terms of when you're assessing it, you still get the same evidence, really. But it's nice seeing that, because when you do an assessment, you can be more granular and saying this is where your gap is. And that's basically a lot of the requirements. Like beforehand, the most requirements you get in this section is like 15. Now there's places that are like 27, which is actually a fair bit.
Yeah.
So there's actually a fair few more requirements, but in terms of the assessment, there's not that much new. Big section, which I'm pretty happy with, but also I don't think anyone's going to pass, is the MFA section. Basically, they're saying that you now need, for maturity level 2 and maturity level 3, which there's 3 maturity levels, you need to have phishing-resistant MFA. Phishing-resistant, from their definition, is passkeys, security keys, and something else. It's basically hardware tokens, because, you know, even number matching MFA, Microsoft MFA,
that doesn't count.
Yeah, even though I often suggest that to companies, it's still technically not phishing resistant, because you could convince someone to, you know,
send.
Yeah, you could you could socially engineer someone, basically. Yeah. Whereas a hardware token, you can't do that at all. Which I think it's a good initiative, and it's a good point where the ASC is basically saying that this is what you should have in place. But with that being said, I don't see anyone complying with this for the next probably 2 years at least.
This kind of makes sense for companies that are critical infrastructure to be putting in. But
it's essential,
but it's saying that everyone needs to have it, right?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. So I deal with like a lot of local governments and stuff like that. None of them will even pass that, especially considering some of them can't even do that because, you know, they have like childcare services, and a big thing of that is you can't have sort of choking hazards. So you can't even have a hardware token.
Yep.
So they're automatically not going to pass that, but you can make an exception for them, of course, because, you know, they can't possibly do it.
Does it seem like they've sort of rushed out this decision to change it, and without fully considering all of the variables at place?
I think that it's actually a good initiative. I personally would have said that should have been a maturity level 3 requirement across the board, because most companies won't get to maturity level 3. I've never seen an organization be maturity level 3. And the Essential 8 has made a lot of changes recently where they've kind of not said that you need to be fully compliant. They've said commensurate with the size of your organization, you should choose a maturity level you're going to aim for, which makes a lot more sense. Because, sometimes it's not possible to have all their stuff in there because you're going to break functionality.
Yeah.
That's the only change I would have made, where I would have said that should be a maturity level 3, but I think it's a good initiative overall because even though it's a hard requirement to get, it is best practice. And, with the Australian government saying that they want to be, the most cybersecure nation by 2030, you got to have those kind of like hard, this is how it's going to be in places. But as I said, I don't see anyone being compliant with this right now. Hopefully they will down the road.
Yeah. Well, just touching on the security strategy, I won't go into depth on it, but their phases seemed like they wanted to, patch essential gaps for the first phase, which is...
I think it was identify gaps and start uplifting or that kind of wording.
Which they're giving it 2 years to do that, which that itself is like laughable. But putting something like this into the MFA, it almost aligns with the second or third phase of their approach, which was uplifting,
increasing their reach, I believe it was.
Yeah, increasing the reach and then becoming a global leader, which, that the second and third one, it can kind of make sense, but patching gaps, I feel like there are other areas that, maybe deserve a little bit more attention. It's like you said, it is best practice, but I think that, like you said, again, not a lot of companies are going to be able to put this in place, and hardly anyone's going to be compliant with it.
Yeah, the good thing about Essential 8 is that even though, it's the Essential 8, there's not really a legal requirement for a lot of places to be fully compliant with it. Like usually how Essential 8 stuff goes is that you assess it and then you come back and you just show that you're continually improving. That's usually the requirement I see for organizations. I'm a fan of the initiative, but I just think it's a bit harsh. But that being said, it's kind of is how it is. The other big change, the one I'm really on the fence of, is that they've added stuff about reporting to CISOs and the ASD. So they've added reporting requirements to the Essential 8. The reason why I'm not a massive fan of this is that the Essential 8's always been a technical framework where this is, you sort of can assess this from a technical perspective. Even there's applications out there where you just put your whole infrastructure into this program and it'll tell you how compliant you are with Essential 8. This takes that away from it. And the reason why I have an issue with it is because there's so many good governance frameworks out there. For local government, there's the local government cybersecurity guidelines. For finance company, there's CPS 234. There's NIST. There's ISO. There's so many good ones out there. I don't know why we're trying to add governance processes to the Essential 8 when it really shines as a technical framework.
Yep.
But yeah, overall, I think good changes, but there's a couple ones where I think we're going to have to iron out the details and we'll see how they go in the next year or so. Actually, kind of going back to the nothing chat stuff, when you're outsourcing a lot of things, a lot of people don't understand how data ownership works. So data ownership is basically who owns the data, more or less. Outsourcing your data to someone else doesn't necessarily mean you're not the data owner. And data owners are ultimately responsible for that data. It's not who uses the data. That's a data custodian. So, for example, in a company, the finance system, maybe IT or someone handles it, but realistically, it might be the CFO. That's the data owner. And they are ultimately responsible for what goes on with it. And then the data custodian is the one who uses it and they'll do like maintenance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Understanding that within your organization is really important because it shows the controls that need to be in place and who's ultimately going to be responsible for that.
Yep.
It's something that's missed a lot of the time.
So I guess kind of bringing it back, that outsourced company would be the data custodian, whereas the company would be the data owner.
Yeah, it's different for a lot of times. They may be the data owner and then they may be the data custodian, but it's important understanding that a lot of the time, and a lot of the time people don't understand that. And also that becomes with legal repercussions as well.
I was going to say, it seems like the data custodian, even though they're not the owner, they still have full access to the to the data, really. They're the ones
A lot of the
it,
time,
and
yes.
people would usually just assume that the data owners are the ones who have that kind of access. Bring it back to the nothing case. The companies who worked for the outsourcing of that product, anyone who was working on the code or the cloud systems or any of it, they could see all of the text being sent in plain text as well. So I guess that kind of furthers it that while nothing's a data owner, the companies that they outsource to, they're the custodians. They're still able to see all of the data, which a lot of people may not understand.
Yeah, it's something that's a massive gap in a lot of companies. I think a lot of people think that security is just IT's responsibility, where it's not the case, because it's an organization-wide thing, because some people are responsible for data, which is not security or IT's role.
Yep.
Okay, Max, you touched on the cybersecurity strategy before. Something I saw in there was they talked a lot about ransomware. First of all, they said that it was mandatory that it's going to be reported in the future. One thing I saw as well is that they were going to put it into a centralized portal where they're going to store this. When both you and I read that, we both kind of said, ooh, that seems like a massive attack vector for attackers. We're talking about cybersecurity, and it sounds like we're making another honeypot for them.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's right. What they said is that they don't want to prohibit the payment of ransomware payments, but they strongly advise against doing it, which I think is more or less the right approach, because if you're flat out saying no ransomware payments, like you just brought up earlier, not on the podcast, but you said, well, what if there's a healthcare provider, a hospital, or like similar to the NHS, where, what if it's an electrical grid that's connected to a hospital and people are going to die without the life support that's there? That could be a consideration to pay that one, if instead of just saying, no, you can't pay it at all, and all these people could die from it. I think that's a case there.
You also run the risk of people are going to pay it anyway.
Yeah.
And do you really want to basically make it illegal? It's a consideration that the government has to take. And I kind of like that they're being cautious in doing this. It's an interesting topic.
I think what they need to do next is provide some resources that companies can go to and seek out advice, seek out negotiators, and find ways that they can communicate with the government in terms of how to get the best scenario when they are hit with this kind of attack. I think that's we're moving in the right direction, though. That's what I would say.
Yeah. So, guys, because it is the Christmas special, we're just going to do a longer form episode. We're going to go through some of the questions that we got on LinkedIn. We made a post basically asking about any questions that people had regarding the podcast. So the first one that I thought was interesting, so we got a question about the process for bringing up the podcast. First of all, it wasn't exactly an overnight decision, something we were talking about probably for 6 months prior before it even started.
Yeah, probably close to 6 months.
Probably started as a joke, really.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit.
And then, I think we said it just an off comment, and then, we kept having arguments basically back and forth, sometimes days at a time, about security. One of the ones that prompted me to make the group chat, I think I made the group chat originally to say like, hey, let's actually do this, was Connor, who was our guest in the last episode, if you tuned in. Max, I think Flynn was chipping in and points as well. We were just talking about how I think it was MFA and bank systems. I think it was a multiple day argument. And then I just kind of, we made a group chat and we said like, hey, we should really just record this and see where it goes.
Yeah.
But the podcast itself, I would say there was a fair bit of work that went into it. Max did a lot of the hard lifting, I would say, getting the podcast up and running.
Yeah, well, I had a bit of experience working on some YouTube videos before. Anyone who's checked out the YouTube channel for Cyber Minutes would see that there's a couple of YouTube shorts that are already there on the channel. I kind of had an idea of playing around with some YouTube shorts about cybersecurity, about ethical hacking, and went through the editing process of it. Figured out that, I could make a half-decent video. And the kind of content creation part of it, while it's not the most incentivizing part of it for me, the the thing is that I can actually make something here, and we can talk about anything really, record it and present it in a way that's potentially different to what other people are doing. So yeah, like Flynn said, we were having some lengthy discussions about cybersecurity topics, and as soon as Flynn was like, oh, we can just record something like this, I went, yeah, well, why not? And we had a few ups and downs, a few
failed iterations, I would say. We plan on actually releasing one of the first episodes the first week of the year, so that'll be interesting. You may get some insights into how far we've come.
Yeah.
But even before that, we had an episode or two which we've just completely scrapped because it was really just a learning curve for us. Fortunately, Max also had a couple of connections where we got some advice from. So Richard Heron from the Talking Cyber podcast, formerly known as the Australian CISO, he really helped us in giving us some pointers on how we can sort of uplift the podcast and how we can get it to a point where we're going live.
Yeah.
We also had a good support network. So obviously Max and I being co-hosts was a great way that we could bounce off each other and with ideas. And, if Max ever needed something, he could always come to me and vice versa.
Yeah.
Also, we had just had friends that were very supportive, like Flynn and Connor.
Yeah, exactly. And in terms of like hurdles that we've had with it, I think getting used to talking in front of the microphone to nobody, or you're talking to your other co-hosts, but you're still trying to present what you're saying almost like you're talking at a panel. Getting used to that took a little bit. And yeah, I don't think we'll release the very first episode because it was pretty subpar in my opinion.
Yeah, we've come a long way.
We didn't really know what we were doing, and we even had video set up. So a few of the hurdles were, how do we kind of present this? Do we want to just do audio, video? How are we going to edit it together? What's the format going to be like? Who's going to upload it? Who's going to edit it? Who's going to run social media? These were all things as well. What days are we going to upload? How are we going to meet in person? Where are we going to record? Those were all like pretty lengthy challenges as well that we had to real brainstorm for a while to think how we were able to get around it. We have some things planned which we'll go into a bit later on what we can do moving forward now that we've got it rolling. But yeah, those were the main challenges.
I think something that people will be interested in as well is kind of the setup we got. So I think this goes to show how anyone can really do it. I'm currently looking at it right now. We have an old laptop and we have a HyperX microphone. That's all we have really. One thing we do utilize a lot is Adobe's AI enhancer software. So something we want to do down the road is getting, more high quality mics, but we're pretty happy with how the quality is now. And it goes to show that anyone can really do it. So if you're thinking about doing it, just go for it. Yeah, I'd say.
So pretty much anyone can do it. All you need is, to grab some people with similar interests to you.
You mesh with, you can talk, you can have a good time with.
Yeah, and find a topic that you're passionate about.
Yeah,
the rest of it,
big thing.
The rest of it you can do in post, pretty much.
I would say a big thing as well is if you can try to sort of carve yourself a niche. I think we do that fairly well as cybersecurity graduates that are new in the industry, where we kind of just casually talk about stuff, and that's the way we want to take the podcast, and we've found success with that so far. So if you can find a niche, I'd recommend trying to look for it.
Yeah.
Not that it's essential. If you are just a great talker, you could probably do it without it.
Oh, you can talk about anything.
Yeah.
You're a great talker.
I think having something you're passionate about is very good. You see a lot of sort of failed podcasts, I say, which is just like guys talking about stuff and they have no direction of where they're trying to talk about.
Nah, exactly. And when we first uploaded the podcast and got a few episodes in, we got added to this Australian directory of podcasts, which is just a big database that someone's gone and made, and it has a list of podcasts that people have made who are from Australia. I can say that a good 50% of them in that initial, there was 9 of them that they listed when we started up. At least 4 or 5 of them have actually, done and stopped posting.
Yeah.
So another thing that's really important is stay consistent with it.
Consistency is key.
Yeah.
So thanks for that question, Corin. Another question we had from Connor, who was on the last episode, of course. He basically just asked about where we get our news from. So this is something we did cover in a previous episode, but we'll just quickly recap it, I suppose. So reading stuff, I'm a big fan of Krebs on Security. he's a pretty good journalist, although he takes a while for stuff to come out. Apart from that, Dark Reading's one where they get the news pretty quick. Sometimes some of the articles I don't entirely agree with. Just general news outlets as well. Like 9 News comes out with some good cybersecurity news on occasion. Podcasts, this one.
Cyber Minutes is always a great form of getting your cybersecurity news.
Yeah,
Exactly.
as I mentioned before, Richard Herron, the Talking Cybersecurity.
Chris Sabrine's podcast, she's got a good one as well. It's a little bit more formal than ours, but it's got a good sort of source for information and industry insights, and something that we...
Fantastic interviews as well. A lot of really smart people in cybersecurity. LinkedIn, you can follow a lot of people that are very insightful on LinkedIn.
IT news, if you're, really desperate for some news and anything, it's not cyber related specifically, but it's an example. Have looked through a lot of cyber articles in the past, and my Google feed is basically completely filled to the brim with cyber news. So for me, if you set up a new Google account maybe and just make the algorithm think that you're very obsessed with cybersecurity, you're also going to get filled with cybersecurity news. Some of it might be rubbish, but some of it might be real valuable as well. That's somewhere that I go.
You have any unique places where you get maybe not cybersecurity news, IT news in general, tech news?
Not really. I just sort of... Social media often gives you, like, maybe some early scoops or...
Yeah. Are you a Reddit person? Go through the Reddit blogs?
Yeah.
I mean, I just like the fact that it's real people on Reddit more often than not. Look, it's not the best community. You really gotta filter through it for good stuff. But I enjoy reading what real people think about news, and like r/programming and all these places. They have a lot of crap, but they have a lot of good stuff as well.
And it is right there right now as well. You get
it's
like the newest stuff.
Yeah,
there's
real time.
people who don't leave Reddit, keeping you updated.
I actually found something interesting the other few weeks ago. I was talking about one of the CVEs that recently came out with one of our cyber threat management engineers at work, and he was telling me that what he does is he literally goes to a CVE Reddit subreddit, and
There you go.
and looks up the ID for the CVE attack or the vulnerability, and he straight away gets people, like Flynn said, people live on Reddit, so people have already created a big description of what the CVE is. People are discussing it in the comments, and you can really get all of your information about the vulnerabilities straight from there.
And I suppose if you really, really want to search through Reddit, you could probably find some malicious sort of forums as well. See how people are exploiting stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to do that, but it's probably out there somewhere.
Probably. Cool. Well, yeah, thanks so much for those questions as well, Connor and Corin.
Yeah, I'll go through some of the achievements and goals for the podcast so far. So one of the biggest ones is when we released the podcast, we peaked at the number 7 technology podcast in Australia, which that was like crazy to see so much support right off the bat. That was, I think we want to eventually try and get higher than that. So a big reason why we did that was we released with 3 episodes. So we had more views because of that. We're seeing that the growth is still going up as well. So I think one day we do want to get to maybe top 5. I think a big goal of ours will be reaching 1,000 views. So the way that at least the podcasting app that we use, it basically checks if someone has played it for a minute or if they've downloaded the thing. So you'd tend to think that somebody's listening to at least a big portion of the episode or half of it. So I think getting to a point where we have 1,000 views on that app would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Knowing that many people have heard you talk about cybersecurity just is crazy.
Yeah.
Another one as well, so we've spoke about in the past, is me and Max went to the Hazer Branch, New South Wales panel meeting. I think that we kind of want to do more in the future, both panels and both stuff where people are more advanced in cybersecurity, and also the ones where people are sort of new, just to be more engaged with the community.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And yeah, we're trying to hit some community goals as well. Yeah, like Flynn said, being more involved, going to more conferences, improving our networking, making sure that we're chatting to as many people as possible, growing sort of the influence that the podcast has a little bit. The next thing that we're looking at is, making sure that we're consistent and we're keeping ourselves accountable to make sure that the release schedule is once a week, every week, at the same time. So Mondays at 5 a.m., making sure that we're hitting that deadline every single week, make sure that we're pushing each other to make sure to hit that goal. We want to try and keep it up so that we're getting the whole 52 episodes out of next year.
Although that being said, guys, if you want to reach out to us by email, or LinkedIn's probably the most popular for us too. We have a Twitter page as well. If you want to just let us know, even with this long form episode, if you prefer the longer form episodes and maybe we release on a slower schedule, we just got to make sure we're consistent if we do that. Just let us know which you prefer.
Yeah. And that goes for topics as well. If you're curious about anything, what our opinion is, if we have any takes on certain subjects that you'd like to hear what we have to say, then feel free to reach out and let us know on our email, again, cyberminutespodcast@gmail.com, or on our LinkedIn group as well. And, just to finish it off, we thought we'd have a little bit of a chat about some of our goals moving into 2024. So, Flynn, do you want to talk to us a little bit about what your goals are moving into the new year?
So probably one of my big sort of career-focused goals right now is I really want to sort of build back up my knowledge of algorithms and sort of more complex algorithms. Some of you might have heard of dynamic programming or greedy algorithms and stuff like that. I want to build that back up because it used to be pretty good, and then I stopped doing it for a while, and I want to get it. Well, I want to get it better than it ever was, really. Another goal I have is spending more time at the gym and really developing my strength more. Now I'm actually going to a gym rather than working out at home, so I really want to build up my physical health there. And lastly, I want to learn Ukrainian. My partner is Ukrainian, so I really want to sort of get to a conversational level there. That would be really cool. Yeah.
So if we ever release a dub of the podcast in Ukrainian, you know that Flynn was doing that.
Oh,
on the Flynn.
On my partner.
Laura's. Yeah. Yeah, cool. All right, Flynn, would you like to go next with some of your goals?
Yeah. So as you guys know, I spoke about it a couple of times. My role at work is typically governance focused. There is a technical aspect where I do technical stuff sometimes, and I have a technical foundation and I have technical insights, talking to a lot of different people and seeing how, certain things react. Like obviously I do a lot of vulnerability management. But a big thing is I want to improve my technical skill a lot going forward. I think I want to get more involved with CTFs and stuff in the new year.
Look at getting some certs.
Not in the meantime. I'm not too focused on getting certs. I'm more just maybe eventually if I do sort of get really involved in CTS, maybe I will go that route. It's not something I'm too interested in right now. It's more just like a personal goal of mine. But I can see myself wanting to do that at one point down the line. Maybe I'll even start doing some programming projects, just small ones by myself to try and uplift my technical skill a little. Also, I'm a powerlifter in my personal life. That's something I really want to hit some goals in next year. 200 kg deadlift is what I'm aiming for next weekend. So I'll let you guys know in the new year if I've hit that or if I folded.
Turned into a paper.
Oh, yeah, there's couches in one of those Friday the 13th movies. Guy gets
folded in half.
Yeah. I do also want to learn Spanish a little. It's something I do in my Duolingo, but I'm not too committed to that. That's something I'm just kind of want to keep that streak going with it. And something as well as I'm a pretty avid chess player in my personal time. My goal next year is to get to 1600 rating, which is in the top 1% worldwide, but it'd be top 1,000 players in Australia. That would be a big goal of mine. I think at some point down the road, I kind of want to sort of teach kids chess as well. I think that's a kind of long-term goal of mine, just because I think we do sports really well in Australia, but I don't think we do as many sort of mental games as well.
Have you been watching the video from Gotham Chess?
Yeah.
So for context, there was a video from a famous chess streamer, and he was yelling at people, telling them to teach chess to children if they wanted some extra money. Because apparently, you can charge.
It could be a nice side gig.
Side hustle, that's the way.
But no, it's something when I was a kid, I learned chess and I loved chess, but I got taught the rules, but I never got taught the game. It's something, I think Australia is not really great at chess, and I think that it would be something really cool to, do at some point down the line, maybe when I'm like 40 years old, who knows?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I might go into some of my goals. So one of the main ones is expanding the podcast. So what I mean by that is becoming multimodal in some sense. So I'd like to have some videos that we can release on our YouTube channel or on our Twitter channel or on LinkedIn, either short format videos or some long format videos, stuff like starting a podcast initially. That'll probably be out maybe a little bit after the holidays. But then also some behind the scenes stuff of what we're doing in the future, as well as some other videos, which are just short clips of either what we've said in the podcast or little insights from the industry, stuff like that, just to make sure to spread the influence of the podcast as much as we can. I want to improve my video editing and my audio editing as well, so that I can, spend less time editing the podcast. That's something that you realize once you start, is that it does take a lot of time when you're cutting through, and even if you're not really religiously cutting every and and everything, you still spend a lot of time going through it. So yeah, that's one of my big goals is spread out the podcast and make it more entertaining and generally better overall. Where Flynn mentioned we're gonna look at getting studio quality, potentially microphones, maybe not quite studio quality, but good ones at least. Maybe even we'd look at renting out a little office for a while where we can brainstorm ideas and record there. Yeah, there's quite a few cool things that are planned for next year, so make sure to stay tuned.
Something we also forgot to mention with the podcast goals is guests. We've got guests lined up that we're really excited to get on. Going forward, especially with the podcast growing, it'd be really cool to, see more guests and get different insights into different parts of the industry. I think that's a really exciting aspect, and I'm sure the viewers are excited about that as well.
Yeah, bringing more guests on, that's definitely one as well. Another one of my goals would be to, after I roll off my graduate program, which is a 2-year program, finishes the end of 2024, find a suitable role at the end of my graduation program, make sure that I'm able to fit in well and keep doing what I'm doing and doing good work. That's another one that I'm working on. And then finally, I thought this one was a bit funny. Some of you may have heard that GTA 6, Grand Theft Auto 6, got announced. Turns out it's releasing 2 years from now, which is a long way away. And I played a little bit of Grand Theft Auto 5, so I'm looking forward to it. So I just scribbled down one of my goals here is to not die before GTA 6 comes out.
It's a good goal to not die in the next year.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'll be trying to make sure that goal stays out. That's it.
So with the fitting into a role, would you say that the stuff you're doing right now with the cloud governance sort of stuff, that's the kind of thing you'd like to do moving forward?
It's hard to say because I have a few more rotations left in my company. So there may, I really love working in cloud security and doing technical work, working with lots of different areas in the business and understanding how the cloud works in quite a, complex sort of way, querying the cloud, really delving into it. I really love it. But, there might be another job that I'm working on next year at some point. If it's identity access or cyber threat management, governance, risk compliance even, then maybe I'll see that and I'll go, oh, this is what I want to do really.
Unlikely, I think, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll definitely see.
Back to you, Flynn. Is there any particular projects you think that you would like to undergo in the next year, software engineering related? Any games maybe? Any particular...
You can make the Cyber Minutes game.
I've always got ideas bubbling away in my head. I think I got to start small with projects. I haven't really made a project that I've completed, and I think I've just got to start small and aim for something that's maybe a bit redundant there. That's sort of the goal there, start small. But in terms of my career, I definitely want to find myself in some cool projects. I want to be moving around, sort of working at the bleeding edge of programming languages and new infrastructure and all that cool stuff. That's sort of my career goal. Yeah.
Cool. Well, this will be the last episode for the year as well. The next one will be in the new year.
This episode will come out on Christmas Day, and then the one afterwards will come out January 1st, so New Year's Day.
Yeah, so this is the last episode of 2023. So yeah, thanks everyone so much for listening this year. Make sure to stay tuned. There's a real, heap of awesome stuff that we're planning for next year. So yeah, get keen for that and
have a Merry Christmas and stay safe in the new year.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Flynn, for coming on once again. We kind of just drag him on when it.
Yeah.
No,
Flynn.
No, it's always a good time just listening in.
Yeah, Flynn's been here from the get-go, so I thought it'd be best to have him on for the recap episode of the year.
Yeah, we pretty much had to drag him out,
No, I love coming on. I thought this was a really cool idea when I first heard it, and I was like, yeah, this is something I really want to see happen with you two. And I may not be like a co-host or anything, but I'm happy to be a recurring guest.
Yeah, exactly. And
we're happy to have him on.
That's what I was going to say. Always happy to have you on as well, Flynn. Right, well, yeah, take it easy, everyone. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and have a great new year. All the best.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks for listening. Just a reminder that the Cyber Minutes podcast is for educational purposes only. The views expressed by hosts and guests are their own, not necessarily their employers. Advice discussed is general advice. We promote ethical discussions, not illegal activities. Have a cybersecurity question? Send an email to cyberminutespodcast@gmail.com, as we'd love to answer it. Stay cyber safe.